thoughts about changing to in-person meetings. Okay. Housekeeping. This meeting is being broadcast live in the council's website, and public speakers are reminded that by speaking and appearing in this meeting, you're giving consent to being recorded. The meeting is automatically recorded and will be available via the council's YouTube pages. The process for each agenda item will be that the relevant officer will give a brief introduction to their report. Councillors and members of the public participating in the meeting will be invited to type or speak in the chat function if they would like to ask a question or make a statement. And the committee manager will check the Democratic Services email inbox as well to see in case any public questions have been submitted and read these out if received. For the comfort of councillors, officers and the public, I may choose to call short breaks during the proceedings. If you require a short break at any point, please indicate to me and I'll halt the proceedings at the next convenient opportunity. So moving on to agenda item 2, could councillors please advise if they have any declarations of interest and identify which item their declaration relates to, please? Councillor Bagent.
Chair, I'm a member of Cambridge Cycling Campaign.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No, I think that's fine. Thank you. So we're moving on to agenda item 3, which says on here it's not currently available.
Minutes are to follow, Councillor.
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, yeah, the minutes are to follow after the meeting, I'm afraid.
Ah, thank you. I was racking my brains as to what agenda item 3 was. Of course, it's minutes, yes. So they'll be available online, or you'll send them to me, or?
We'll send them to you first, and then they will be published by the end of next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So can I ask you to note the details in the agenda pack? Are there any updates to matters arising? Well, we can't do that now. We will have to do that online when the minutes are available. And so we now move on to agenda item 5, policing and safer neighbourhoods. I'd very much like to welcome Rachel Fairhead, who is our anti-social behaviours officer, and we're also joined by Sergeant Neil Campbell, who is new, I think, to the post of being our local Bobby, as it were. So, Rachel, would you like to speak on anything, or would you like to just take questions? Is there something that you would like to say?
There's just one update that we have that isn't in the report because it's only been decided today. It is Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week in the week after next, and we are planning to do some drop-ins for in the community for people to come up and speak to us with their concerns, and we're hoping to do one in Petersfield. It's likely to be Petersfield and Abbey, so we're not sure which location it is. We've got a couple of hotspot areas as is mentioned in the report, but we will be doing a drop-in that will be advertised on social media once it's been confirmed. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions.
That's good. That's really good news. Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from councillors, please? Councillor Thornborough, and then Councillor Healy, and then Councillor Moore.
Some residents have been telling me about very loud vehicles accelerating late at night on Hills Road near Highset, which is where Station Road joins Hills Road. And what they've done is they've been recording when it happens, and it does seem to be a pattern because they were just saying it's at random, but it's not. They've done a 6 months or 8 months recording when these have happened. Is this something that the police could? Is there anything we can do about these? It's an antisocial behaviour aspect of our city. And so if we know when it is it possible to actually do something and target these? Thanks.
Rachel, would you like to take questions one at a time, or would you like me to give? Would you like to say have 3 and then answer them?
One at a time, but I would suggest that would be more for Neil, unfortunately, to answer, my police colleague.
Right.
It wouldn't be something that the ASB team would be able to investigate because we wouldn't be able to have any we're not a reactive service, and obviously we wouldn't have the information of who's driving the vehicles. So I think that's probably best for
Mhm.
Sergeant Campbell, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Thank you, Sergeant Campbell. Is it possible you could turn your camera on and answer the question?
Yeah, good evening. If
Good
you've got
evening.
dates and times that this is happening, I'm happy for me to deploy some units down there to see what's going on. We haven't had any direct reports around the vehicle nuisance on Station Road and Hills Road, but yeah, if you've got dates and times that they're happening, please let me know and I'll get someone down there.
Thank you. Councillor Thornborough, are you happy with that response? Did you want to say any more on that one?
No, I'm really, really pleased, and the residents have worked hard to gather the information. So I hope it's something that can have a positive outcome. I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, my question's for Sergeant Campbell and also Rachel as well. We recently became aware of a really serious transphobic attack on Mill Road, where some individuals, they were pursued down the street. It was really abusive. They had to seek shelter in a shop. And the pursuers followed them in, and it was only active bystanders that intervened that stopped any more kind of violence happening. Now, obviously, you can't discuss individual cases in this, but we do want to speak to you about that because they really felt that they were dismissed by the police when they reported it. But I think more generally today, I'd be keen to understand, first of all, is this common across the city, or are you aware of any other instances? And secondly, what are we doing, and do we have any specific strategies around transphobia in the city and addressing it? Thanks.
Would you like me to answer that one straight away rather than Rachel?
Yes, please. Oh, however you would, yes.
Yeah, I mean, for that one, even after Pride, from what I'm aware of, we've had 5 reported incidents, and a lot of those are connected. So we've had multiple victims that were targeted at any one time. I don't think it is an issue across the city. I'd be interested to know the victims' details of that if you can pass them to me outside the meeting so I can have a look at what happened there, because all racial and homophobic incidents come through to my team. So it should have been investigated. I just need to have a look at it. And without knowing the case, I can't really do that.
Thank you. Are you happy to forward that, Councillor Healy, and the details? Yeah, great. Thank you. Did you want to come back on that at all? To say anything more, or Councillor Healy?
Is the sergeant saying that he's not aware of it?
That's my impression, that it's not come through, isn't it? So
I don't know that specific case. I can think of a few incidents that have happened down Mill Road recently, but I can't recall that being one of them. Has it definitely been reported to the police? It has. Okay.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, and thank you for all of your work, and particularly your proactive work. That's really important. I just wonder, for your antisocial behaviour events, obviously you'll choose the hotspots, but I just wonder about Cambridge Leisure, and whether that would be a good location for one of your events. We actually witnessed quite an unpleasant incident last night just by chance, and I know from residents and feedback that we get that there have been quite a few incidents there. For example, young people being assaulted in Five Guys, and we witnessed a racist incident last night. So I just wonder whether that could be added to your list of locations for the antisocial behaviour event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll certainly put that on the list of emerging hotspots. There is some work going on there with our youth liaison officer doing some work, and I can catch up with her and see if she's got any planned events as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Alex Boulat, you're next on my list.
Thank you, Chair, and just want to say thank you to Sergeant Campbell and his colleague who met all of us Abbey councillors, but myself county and two of the city councillors in Abbey. We found the experience very useful to actually be in the area to some of the issues and to discuss this. And I encourage everyone from the different wards in the East Area Committee to have that, because I think it's really good from resident perspective as well. My question is around the illegally modified motorbikes and noise pollution around that. I had a few requests from a few questions from residents recently around the Riverside area, but not only around like what to do if we witness, for example, illegally modified motorbikes or cars who are obviously polluting in terms of like noise pollution and other types of pollution as well. What is the advice around that?
That's another one for me over Rachel. Again, feed into me when these are happening for specific times. We don't get a lot of reports coming in, or if they are coming in through 101, they're not filtering through to us. So it's something we need to work together on and try and work out exactly when it is, so I can have some people down there. The actual vehicles themselves, they should be getting MOT tested, which should bring up any of the issues around exhaust and stuff like that. But I'm happy to put people down there if there is times it is a particular concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davey, if you'd like to ask yours.
Thank you, Dinah. And like Alex, just to say thank you to Sergeant Campbell for meeting Richard and I last week in Mill Road Cemetery. Much appreciated. So thank you very much for your time. My question, I think, is probably for Rachel. It's in the peer groups and places element of your report. You refer to work that's ongoing in terms of preventative work, which I really welcome and would encourage. But you don't say where, and I just wanted to see if there was any particular parts of our patch that relate to, or is that something that you have to keep relatively confidential?
A lot of the local schools, certainly the work's gone into schools as part of their PSHE lessons. So secondary schools at the moment, we're looking to get some of the training tools that we have signed off to be able to be used in primary schools for the last 2 years of primary school. Forgive me, is it year 8 and 9? I can't remember the year numbers. It was, you know, first year was secondary school for me when I was at school. Apologies. So the last 2 years of primary schools we're looking to go into there. So it's about raising awareness, and you know, young people aren't always aware of their enthusiastic behaviour. In some instances can be seen as annoying and antisocial by others. So just as an awareness tool. So there's a lot of work going with into schools, but also working with Romsey Mill. Thank you, Councillor Goodcliffe, in years 5 and 6. So yes, there's some work, joint partnership work as well with individual families, and that's all I'd be able to say. Some of which are in your area.
Right, so it's a mixture of stuff, Rachel, i.e. there's more generic stuff that's done with schools across the city, but then there's some specifics with families.
Yeah, okay. So where young people are, you know, emerging as becoming sort of a little bit of a, I don't want to say a problem, but misguided perhaps. So that there is some targeted work with individuals and support going in for various, again, across the city, but there will certainly be some in your patch.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bagent.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is for the police sergeant. I've got a couple of points which I'm concerned are not good for police reputation. We have this, Councillor Boulay sort of raised it, this situation with scooters. Now, as we understand it, only the voice scooters are legal on the road or anywhere. And what is Cambridgeshire's Constabulary's position about dealing with what I would call illegal scooters?
It's a bit of a difficult one, to be honest with you. We're instructed to use the 4 E's. So we engage with people, we explain the law to them, encourage them to change the use of behaviour, and as a last resort, we enforce the law, which is seizing the scooters. I think it's got to a point now where these things have been sold without any guidance for too long for it to be an immediate fix on what we can do around it. On the 5th of June, we did do a day of action around antisocial driving, and scooters was one of the things we did. I know they gave advice to several members of the public, and those people walked away with their scooters rather than being on them. We take names and details, and should they come across us again, then we would enforce the law. But like I say, it's at the point where a lot of people are misguided as well. They think if they've got a driving license, they can ride them because that's what the void thing is. It's a case of us continuing to educate the public and letting them know, and we do that through social media and also engagement, which is one of the 4 E's.
So there's no priority or upfront policing to stop this from happening. I mean, I keep seeing now scooters with 2 people on. They're only designed for one, and they're not even the legal scooters. And sometimes people haven't got much in the way of, well, definitely not got helmets on. And I just wondered if we could have anybody thought about some proactive policing. I mean, particularly Mill Road. Well, that's where I am. That's where we see them. Have the police thought about this, or is it something now that we should be saying, well, it's all happened and it's too late?
Well, no, we do still action on it. One of the locations we did on the 5th, what was Mill Road, just before the bridge, because we worked on what our KSI, which is killed or seriously injured locations were, and that was one of the ones where people have been deemed to be at more risk. So we did go down there and do it. In regards to the doubled up of the scooters, if it's Voi ones, we've got an agreement with Voi where we can feed straight in and they suspend accounts and give advice out as long as we've got the 4 digits off the side of the Voi scooter. With the private ones, it's more difficult. And the issue is a lot of these offences, we've got to find them committing the offences. So if there's an officer there that stops them with dealing, then we can enforce the law. In regards to reports coming in, it's quite difficult to manage in the aftermath.
Yeah, I understand that, and I really recognise the police's difficulty here, but it's a reputational thing, and the people that I speak to, the police don't go down well on this. But there we are. My second point is about the bike theft, which you're familiar with, where somebody had his bike stolen and then saw it advertised on Facebook and reported it to the police, and through some difficult process, the case got cancelled or shut down. And then I spoke to an officer who wasn't very happy with me being involved. In fact, he told the person that had reported the bike theft that he shouldn't go to his counsellor. I think that might be a good idea to mention to your staff that we are the representatives of the community. We are the political leaders in this city in some ways, and that it might be a good thing to say to them that we do have the perfect right to talk to police officers about things like this. And then, of course, as you know, the person found this bike on Facebook, reported it, the case got shut, then it got reopened again, but it was put on hold until the Saturday, which was 3 days later. In the meantime, the guy arranged to collect the bike back. Now, I recognise that, well, I just like to see some sort of comment about this if we could, and then perhaps I've got a second question.
Yeah, no worries at all. I mean, we had a discussion about that outside of this forum. I have spoken to that officer in question and offered him some advice around that. The issue we had around the bike was that while we had a conversation with the victim and a member of the public who was claiming to have the bike, we didn't have a location. Our powers to enter a premises are quite restrictive on what we can do. If we know for sure that that bike is there, we can go in. In the circumstances of that one, we had a conversation where we didn't actually know the bike was on the premises, and the name of the Facebook account was communicating as well. If I remember rightly, it was actually 3 different first names. It wasn't a full name of someone. So at that point, I don't think that had actually been identified. Are you saying that member of the public has retrieved their bike back? Because I haven't looked into the case since it wasn't allocated to my unit.
Right. Well, yes, indeed, they went round there and collected it.
Right.
I put that gently. I mean, we know that, or we are told that a lot of this bike theft is to feed drug habits, and some of it is by order, and this was a very expensive bike. Now, we don't want the situation where people are having to act as vigilantes, and you can only imagine what could have happened if it had been the very undesirable people that had stolen the bike and it had turned into some sort of scrap.
No, I do completely understand that. Vigilantism is the last thing we want. We do talk closely with people that run several social media pages in the city, and we get a lot of information fed into us. When we've got a definite location of a bike, we will go out to it. It's as simple as that. We will go out, but unless we know for sure that bike is there, as in it's been seen there, or we know definitely we can see it through a window, we've got no power to enter or go in and get it, and that was the issue in that circumstance.
But you must appreciate that doesn't look good. I picked this up on social media, didn't know the chap, I just picked it up on social media and said, well, they can't close the case if you know where the bike was, and it went on from there. And so it doesn't look good for the police service.
No, I understand that, but at the point we spoke, I don't think the location of the bike was known, and ultimately I can only act within the law and the powers that I'm given, and at that point that was where we were.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I just alerted to that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. I think Councillor Moore, did you have your hand up again, or is that legacy?
Yeah, it's a new one, I'm afraid.
Yes, no,
I
it's fine.
just wanted to say I totally appreciate and understand that the police budgets have been cut for years through austerity, but I just wonder whether there's the opportunity, and this is back to antisocial behaviour, for there to just be the occasional police presence. For example, in Cambridge Leisure and Coleridge Rec, we've also had more reports of antisocial behaviour there. And then there's the cut through at the bottom of the Carter Bridge. And I just wonder whether that, if the police are seen, there's evidence that then if just the police are seen occasionally, I think there's even evidence that, you know, on a night out, if people see a picture of a police officer, that they're less likely to commit a crime. And so I just wonder whether that could be added to your, I'm sure, very long list of jobs. Thank you.
No worries at all. I mean, the Cambridge Leisure Park's an ongoing piece of work that we have going. It's been a problem now for over a year, especially on Sundays. We're having regular meetings with the management there, and there has been a lot of work going on with them of how we resolve it. A major issue that as well was the crime that was being committed there wasn't being reported. It was being underreported, and it wasn't coming through to us. But that remains one of our things. We do have officers there a lot of Sundays and Saturdays as well, which is growing as a problem. But we will continue doing that until it gets resolved.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Get off mute. Thank you. Yes, I was rather impressed that you were taking an initiative with the Voi scooters, well, the scooters that are not Voi, rather, and looking into, well, you've run one session already. I'd quite like to know how often you're going to be able to do that, because I do think, as we had the conversation, when make it clear to scooter users that the law is what it is, and they shouldn't be using their personal ones on the road. I know you say they've been on sale without guidance for too long, but they're still illegal, and many of them are driving around at very high speeds, more than 30 miles an hour, some of them. And clearly, I've heard of accidents on Hills Road as well. So both areas would benefit from regular visiting. Is that something you're going to be able to do?
It is, but to do it, we've got to work collaboratively with the other neighbourhood teams, unfortunately, because covering the east, I've currently got 4 officers. So what we do is, like on the 5th of June, we worked together. So we had 16 of us, and that's when we went out and did it. I mean, obviously, it's quite difficult to cover the whole city, but it's covering one of the main ins or outs is always going to be the best way of doing it. Every neighbourhood team's on duty once every 3 weeks, and the plan is that we're going to have a day of action every 3 weeks, basically, where we're going to focus on one thing. We did drive in an ASB last time. We haven't made a plan for the next time yet, but I will add it to the list that it needs looking at down Hills Road as well.
Yeah, well, impressed with it, and thank you if you can continue doing them. That'd be great. Could you also include cyclists going through red lights?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shayler.
Yeah, very briefly as well, I want to thank you for enforcing those illegal ones. Just after that, I did a radio interview where I underlined the illegal nature of those particular ones. Not that many people listen to my radio interviews, but we do what we can. We also don't miss a chance to get the message to the Department for Transport to give us some better guidance. There are now a burgeoning number of variants from electric mopeds all the way through, and some of them seem to be designed to sit in that grey legal area in between. And, you know, eventually we want the highway space to be as safe as possible, where you have, you know, vehicles or people walking at walking speed should be together, and something at cycling speed should be at cycling speed, etc. You know, but at the moment we are struggling with the guidance that we have down. But do let us know feedback if we can ask specific questions of the Department for Transport.
No problem at all. The last meeting I had with our casualty reduction officer, apparently there is discussions in central government around legislation, but he didn't know the ins and outs of what was going on or any timelines on that. Hopefully, once that's done, we'll be in a better position to take action on it.
Yeah, there's one coming out soon that is going to be a new class of vehicle, which is a slow moving zero emission two-wheeler, but they still don't have much guidance on speed as far as I can tell. So we'll keep pushing.
Yeah, no worries at all. The Voi ones, the rented ones, obviously are geofenced, so they're restricted depending where they are. In regards to the use, if it's a bike that's got pedals, it's mechanically assisted, so it doesn't come under the same legislation. Whereas if it hasn't got pedals, it's mechanically propelled, and then it is subject to it. So that's how it sits at the moment. But we're hoping to get some more clarification.
Yeah, the ones that have pedals, but they also have an independent accelerator, the ones that are a bit dodgy, aren't they?
Yeah, and they do some speed on them as well, don't they? So hopefully we'll get some legislation out on those as well soon.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Yes, I think that would be really welcome. It's a real issue, isn't it? It's on the cycle paths and things when these things whiz along. Can I just make one point, which is that something that always comes up on the doorstep is that the people do never see a police officer. They never see them on the streets, and I appreciate that you're stretched with your resources, but it would be good if you can feed that back. You know, that people feel reassured. I mean, it's not just that it prevents crime, but it also reassures people when they see a police officer in their neighbourhood. And I think that would be really welcome if the presence could be more visible.
Yes, no problem at all. I mean, a lot of the councillors here will have seen me walking around. I know a few of you have just come across me while I've been on foot patrol. So that is something that's going to be changing now I'm in command here.
That's brilliant. Good to hear. Thank you. So I've got, yeah.
Donna, sorry to interrupt. There's some people waiting who can't come in, apparently.
Well, I had a message to say that the live stream is not working. Chris, can you, can you let people in? I think there's, are you there, Chris?
I am here. Yes, I'm currently working on the live
Excuse me,
stream. We are still
the
recording.
two that I've had is Frank Northcroft and Mr. Culver.
Just restarted again.
Richard's asking questions.
Right. So if I just move on to it, Councillor Bagent, you had another point, yes?
Sorry, this is just something I probably should be aware of. But you said that you have 4 officers on the community team. Is that 4 officers on shift or 4 officers at any one time?
That's so it's split into four areas for the city. That is on the east ward that covers the 4 wards of the east of the city. They're not on duty at any one time. The neighbourhoods work between 7 a.m. and midnight usually, 7 days a week.
Right. So there will be 4 of them 7 days a week between 7 and midnight, or one of them?
4. If this team's on duty, it'll be 4. The North were on early turn today and they had 5 in. So there was 5 in this morning. There's 4 in for late turn today.
Right. Thank you. Perhaps we might benefit from understanding how that, if there was something written down to tell us how that works, that would be very useful.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'll send you an email.
Thank you very much.
And was that all your point, Councillor Davey? Just that there's people waiting?
It was pure. Sorry, Dana. Yeah, it was purely just a chip in to let people know that people are having trouble with the stream. That's all.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Robertson. Did you have another point? You're muted.
No, it was a legacy.
Right, I'm just letting the committee chair know who is waiting to get in. Do we have any more questions for either Rachel or Sergeant Campbell? No. Right, they are having internet problems. That's possibly why they're not getting in, and the committee manager is looking into it. Thank you. Well, thank you ever so much, Rachel and Neil, for coming along. And it might just be helpful if you could pop in the chat how we contact you, or email us or whatever, just to, perhaps occasionally, you know, just as a reminder as well, because it's you know, sometimes emails get lost and things, because it's, you know, I think if we can keep up a good dialogue with you, that's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you,
thanks.
Councillor Pound. Good evening.
So now we move on to agenda item 6, which is the Mill Road Bridge. So first of all, I'm going to ask Councillor Beckett to give an update about the closure, and then we have other questions as well coming up. Councillor Beckett, are you there? Was it? Yes, he is here. Councillor Beckett, are you not able to hear us? You're on the list as being in the
Sorry,
meeting.
so I dropped out.
Hello
and missed you
there.
Hello.
So if you could just give us an update on first of all, on the closure of the bridge, and then I think we have some other questions also about, you know, various other aspects of it.
Yeah, I was wondering whether it's actually best for me to do that, or I know you've got Councillor Shayler, who's the vice chair and actually the local member for the bridge. So I don't know, Neil, sorry, Councillor Shayler, whether you would like to have the honours of presenting it or whether you'd rather I did, but I know you've been very heavily involved in it as well, obviously. Oh, you're muted, Neil.
Yeah, I think we both have the information. I just got another update from Vanessa too, so I don't know which. Okay, let me have a go at it.
Sure, although I think Neil's freezing for me. Is he for everyone else?
He has frozen, yes.
Frozen.
There's apparently real internet problems tonight, the council are having as well. I think, can you go for a little bit, Alex, while we're waiting for Neil to get back in? I'll let him know he's frozen.
Yes, give me 2 seconds. So yes, so as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the Mill Road Bridge obviously was approved by the Highways and Transport Committee at a meeting. Oh, Neil's come back now. Neil, are you back with us?
Yes, I think I am. I can see everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you. Yeah,
you
you were frozen. Yeah.
Gosh, that never happens. This is incredible. Okay, so the first one, I can go through the detailed implementation. So the works are due to begin in early September and last for 5 to 6 weeks. That will include a full closure of the bridge, several nights, temporary traffic lights, all the sort of normal stuff. And there may be some daytime working as well. And the details, of course, are going to be publicized in time before it happens. The final actual traffic restrictions are programmed for the 16th of October, which I think we know. And then there'll be a grace period of about a month when the enforcement cameras will be live and warning notices will be sent out, but no fines. Now, regards delays, there have been some delay due to the possibility of different ways of dealing with this, but basically it's more or less on track. It was always going to go for the permanent construction was going to be early September, and that is milestones have messed us around a little bit, but the thing is with all of these ones, there are a lot of stages that you must go through, and that includes in this particular case it was a negotiation and agreement with Network Rail to work above their structure and finalizing the design options, of course, and some of that is still ongoing. There has to be a road safety audit, site investigations, and the procurement of the subcontractor. And that was the last small movement of this. And then, of course, traffic management, planning, and that sort of stuff. They're just the normal ones. Securing the road permits and liaison with all of us as well. And there's stakeholders and all that sort of thing. So it is actually not that much delayed. These things do take a long time. There's a question about rat running along Mill Road, and the question was, rat running along Mill Road and through South Petersfield will continue to be a problem after bridge restrictions are in place. Can you please outline the County Council's planned approach to deal with this? And of course, that it is a bit of a statement that rat running will continue. We hope it won't, but it will be monitored. There are permanent ANPR cameras at either end of Mill Road, and at the Mill Road end of Tennyson Road, and on arterial roads close around the city as well. And the data from these cameras can be accessed anytime by anyone. Additional monitoring on several side roads off Mill Road will also take place pre and post implementation. And we will use the data to access the traffic flows in the short and the medium term. And if issues occur, we will work with the local residences and businesses to address them. One of the aims of the Public Realm Scheme will be a new street layout, and that will also slow traffic and make Mill Road, and by extension Petersfield and Romsey, a less appealing cut through. And I think we've talked about this before. Now, the question from Richard Cavalier, I think you're also here.
Excuse me interrupting, Neil.
Yeah.
We come on to public questions in a moment, and so we will come back to the individual questions. So I think it was just this agenda item really was just about the closure, if that's okay. So I think if you have you said everything, just said it's the time scale and what's happening, and I think that's what we would just like just now. And then when we get to the questions, we'll go back to the other finer detail.
I think that's a really good summary by Neil. Can I just add one thing, obviously, which is that the TRO was made and sealed on June the 14th. Now, obviously, we've had some indication from people that they might be interested in calling a judicial review into that. Now, they have a deadline of which they can call that judicial review. We haven't been notified of that yet. But obviously, if there is a judicial review called, then that may delay things while we wait for the outcome of that as due process.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bagent.
Yeah. Is it possible? Why are we allowing a month of grace? Because it's okay to do that, but when you announce that you're going to do that, people will just carry on using it for a month, and it'll become very, very confusing, and if not quite dangerous. We need to allow a month.
I can probably take that. It's with all the best will in the world, the notifications only ever reach a small number of people. You know, as we know, when we try and do consultations and things, we always get the people that's that they never heard of any of it. So there will be those who get caught out, and so it's just kindness, really.
I find it. I understand what you're saying, but I find it hard to believe that we want to be kind. But that's not a very good legal position. I think we should shut it and find everybody that goes across it.
Yeah, but I think we are also cognizant of the political position, and I don't think we want to annoy people more than we need to. I think we have a lot of political will behind this in our particular area, and I think we want it to be as popular as possible, really.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions about the actual closure? We will come back to the Mill Road during the open forum. It's just the actual details of the question of the closure at the moment. Are we all? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to ask, is it any possibility of doing some comms about qualifications for blue badges? I'm still getting, you know, a sort of steady stream of people saying, oh, I'm disabled, but I can't get a blue badge, when they're perfectly straightforward hidden disability cases. And I know not everybody, you know, needs to know the ins and outs, but we have a really good hidden disability team at the county council, and it would be fantastic to do some comms about it.
Thank you. That's a really good point. If you can consider that, I think that's probably for you, Councillor Beckett, isn't it, as chair of that committee?
I'm sure that's something we can look at. It's not actually, the hidden disability team doesn't sit within highways and transport. There is obviously a lot of stuff on blue badges, but I'm sure that's something we can look at. Actually, I don't know whether, Councillor Pounds, whether that's something you want to take from this committee to the, I guess it would be the Adults and Health Committee.
Adults and Health, yeah,
That it
sure.
might be something that you could write to them about.
Yeah,
Certainly.
just to add that current blue badge holders have been able to register 2 vehicles since, I think it was March this year, already for this particular scheme, so they can go and do that now.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
And a lot of comms has been done around that Mill Road blue badge part, and there is a really good page on the County Council's website about it as well. If any members of the public are interested in looking, there's a lot on there.
Thank you. Councillor Howitt?
Sorry to Councillor Beckett, it really doesn't come under the Adults and Health Committee. I'm the chair of that committee.
Oh, excellent, good.
It really does.
Sorry, you're right, Councillor Howard.
Really
I forgot you were here
does
as chair of that committee.
And to you, not me. But and also, I think maybe there's a city council input, but I'm just not aware of that. But I'm not saying that to make any points. But it is dealt with in the transport arena. And as a long-time disability rights campaigner, I just made the point to everyone that we obviously want to make it as easy as possible for disabled drivers who are eligible to be able to take advantage of the scheme. But equally, there is abuse of the scheme with non-disabled people using disabled people's parking spaces and some fraudulent use of blue badges, and that's extremely reprehensible. And I suspect that our officers who deal with that do a pretty good job, given that they have both sets of challenges. So I'm sympathetic to the question, but I think both sides do need to be heard.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, is that a legacy hand or?
No, it's a supplementary question.
Okay, yeah.
Since we're connecting with a blue badge expert, I just wanted to say that I've had issues with residents who say they're afraid to leave their blue badge in the car because they're afraid somebody will break in to steal it. And I just wondered if we could change the badge format so that, you know, sort of we can have something that's maybe a copy so that people don't, you know, if there's some arrangement we could have that could allow people to leave a badge up, but not feel that they're, you know, likely to get their badge stolen. You know, maybe if there wasn't just a badge, but there was a register, and the register was linked to registrations.
Councillor Howitt, can I ask you to consider that one?
I'll be very brief. Obviously, the motivation behind the question is a really good one. People genuinely do fear, and in fact, people's cars are broken into. It's absolutely reprehensible. But the details of the blue badge scheme are determined by national governments, and we don't have any flexibility at the local level to change that. There is, of course, a register, so the local authority knows who's got a badge and who hasn't. But I think in terms of this meeting, the message should go out from us that we want disabled drivers to be respected and blue badge holders to feel no fear and to be given no barriers in order to exercise their rights. But the rest of us not to abuse the system, and that should be a strong message from all of us at this meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shayler, did you want to make one more point?
Yeah, just quickly, the blue badge scheme was, of course, for parking vehicles in convenient places, so they display the blue badge. But just to underline, for the Mill Road scheme, it will be detected on the basis of a number plate. So those two number plates will be registered to that blue badge holder, and of course, it's expected that the blue badge holder is in the car, but we won't be looking at the actual blue badge. It will be the number plate.
Thank you. That, I think, hopefully will be quite reassuring, Councillor Bennett, that's, and I know that, I believe it's two cars, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. The blue badge is valid for. Councillor, how is that a legacy hand?
It is, apologies.
No, that's fine. Right. Councillor Bajan, briefly, if you would, and then we have go to our open forum. We have people, members of the public who'd like to join us. Yeah.
Can I just ask, Neil made a point there. If somebody's got a blue badge exemption on a car that they don't drive, and somebody else drives it to drive them about, presumably, if that person drives over the bridge and there's not a disabled person in the car, are they then fined?
Councillor Shayler, can you answer that? Because
yes, it's technically that's not allowed. However, with the ANPR cameras, it doesn't look to see who is in the car. It looks at the number plate.
Probably shouldn't say any more, Neil, there that they are not permitted to drive over it, and we shouldn't give people any ideas.
Yeah, and so we're not allowed to say in any way, shape, or form, because that is not a legal use of this particular scheme. But
I think that's a wider issue anyway. But there's all, if people do abuse that, then they stand the risk of losing their blue badge, which I would have thought was a pretty good deterrent. Yeah.
Also, just to highlight on there, Councillor Bounds, that this is obviously a legal TRO. So therefore, while the primary enforcement method will be by cameras, the police could also choose to enforce it at any point that they wished. So if it were becoming a big problem, I'm sure we could ask our neighbourhood policing team to look at some enforcement.
Thank you very much. And on that point, Sergeant Campbell has left two contact emails in the chat if you wanted to note them, if you don't already have them. Great, right. I'd like to move on now to the open forum when we have some public questions.
Unfortunately, none of them are in the meeting.
Now, there's been an issue with this, and I've spoken to the committee chair, so I'm not quite sure. I've got all the things written down, and there were people here at the start of the meeting, so so Andy Kennedy is here. But I think he's the only one, and I apologise. I don't quite know what's gone wrong, and there's not much I can actually do about it. But we will address their questions, and the meeting is being recorded, so they will be able to access our answers from the recording.
If it helps, Diana, I've heard from Frank Gawthrop again, and apparently the YouTube stream has crashed again. So the people who we may be able to read the questions out, but the people who are posing them won't be able to hear what is said.
Yes, so definitely Andy Kennedy is here. I don't know what to say, because it's out of my control really if the system is down. But he has assured me that the meeting is being recorded. So I think if we work through that, and then it may be that we have to do something via email. Councillor Thornborough, did you want a suggestion?
Yes, I wondered whether like in full council, whether we could give them written replies.
Yes, I think that's definitely an answer. So I will make notes, and we will have a recording, and we will have to do something along those lines. Yes, Councillor Beckett.
I was just going to suggest the same thing, that maybe it'd be more appropriate to actually just keep the questions and give them a written reply at a later date.
Yeah, I think we obviously do need to discuss them, don't we, though, so that That will form the basis of their written reply, because we don't have officers, I don't think, who will be able to put a written reply together without our input. So the first public question then comes from Anthony Carpen, and I will read it out to you. So the Cambridge Play Laws project will be coming to Coleridge Rec on the weekend of the 1st of July. I was at the event at Cambridge Leisure Park on the 18th, I think he means June, and numbers were on the low side. Please could officers and councillors ensure that posters are displayed in advance of the event locally, that a volunteer to put flyers in the local primary schools, and that Coleridge Neighbourhood Forum and Cambridge City Council has a small marquee similar to what Abbey had for their big lunch event, with both information and interactive activities for the public, ranging from what they want to see more of in the neighbourhood to asking what they'd be prepared to do in return to help things happen, similar to the processes of neighbourhood agreements piloted in Oldham. I think that third one, they are separate questions, aren't they? So first of all, it's the issue of the Play Laws project. Councillor Healy, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on that as the exec councillor. So the funding for the Play Laws project is obviously Section 106 funding, and that's it takes place in 4 specific areas under the funding. So clearly our community development teams and our comms officers have been really actively promoting the events in those areas. So they've been doing, really targeted kind of promotions in those areas where they're taking place, including Coleridge. We've also done some radio and some TV interviews as well last week with the artists. So we have been promoting it really well, I think, locally. And just in terms of the Abbey event, so the event in Abbey is part of our focus on Abbey, because obviously it's a really sort of deprived ward across the city, and unfortunately we just don't have the resources to do all these citywide. But what I'd say is, we are promoting it locally, and people should be aware of it. And I personally think in terms of this project, it is aimed at children. And I think some of the other things that have been suggested, like the stalls or the historical stalls, I think it is an event for young people. And I think it's really good to focus on that on its own. And in terms of the wider point around marquees and stuff, we had some really excellent outreach last year as part of our cost of living work, pop-ups in all the wards, including wards in our east area as well, and I'm hoping that we can do that again this winter. So we will have more opportunities for city council stalls and marquees around the wards across the city, and I'm also really happy to put up posters for the event in Coleridge, and I'm sure the Coleridge ward councillors will also be happy to put some posters up as well, just to promote it. We can put them up on the notice boards in Sainsbury's and the other places suggested.
Thank you very much, Councillor Healy, and I think you've answered all his points there about having pop-up stores and generally having more information, which I think will be very welcome in our wards. Did anybody else want to make any comment on this one?
Yeah, could I just come in?
Yes, please do, Councillor Moore.
As the chair of Coleridge Community Forum, which I think is what he means, the neighbourhood forum, it's a great idea to have a stall there, but we're already having one on, I think it's the 9th of July. There's a Cambridge Live event, and we're a very small and quite tired group of volunteers. And I think that having those two so close together would not be possible. But certainly, I agree with Councillor Healy. And again, on the leafleting, we don't have that capacity, but certainly to the putting up posters. And luckily, Coleridge Rec is very well used, particularly the splash pad, the playground, the mugger, and so any posters around there. Obviously there's also football gets played there, not this time of year, but the tennis courts, so just posters around there. I'm sure it will be well attended. Thanks. And we're really happy to have it coming to Coleridge. It's a really great project.
Great, thank you very much. If everybody's had Happy, then I'll move on to the second question, which has come from Andy Kennedy, and I do believe Andy's here. Made it. Hello, Andy. Welcome. Would you like to read out your question?
Sure. Yeah, I think. Thank you for having me for a start and letting me talk to you about this stuff. I think Neil has made some moves to answer some of this already, so I won't labour on those. The timescales for the bridge closure, which is the first questions he's already talked about. I mean, as far as delays are concerned, I would, and he was describing a complex process of this has to happen and that has to happen before we can put this thing in place. But I would remind him that we have done this before, and presumably, I don't know, maybe it's more complicated this time because it's a permanent thing. But anyway, let's move on from that one. So I don't think Neil addressed the second one, which is, can you please provide indicative timescales and the approach that's envisaged for the design phase of the streetscape changes? Now, this was something that's been promised by the Highways and Transport Committee as a piece of work for some time, and I think the intention was that it was always going to be carried out in parallel with the work that was needed to put the TRO in place, at least the planning. So we have asked, I should say actually, I'm here on behalf of Mill Road for People, not just as an individual resident, but 700 members who campaign for a better Mill Road for everybody, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I just wondered if we're any further forward on this planning, and I appreciate that Alex Beckett, I think, made the point about the judicial review, and yes, that may delay things, but you know, making the wild assumption that we adhere to these timescales of October, what we don't want to do is get to October and find that it's only then that we're beginning to think about what the design phase should look like. So I'd like some reassurance, if possible, from councillors present about what that's going to look like.
Councillor Shayler, are you happy to take that one?
Yeah, I think, and if Alex wants to chip in, that's great. We are very, very keen to make use of the change in the environment to make it what we all want it to be, which is, you know, the centre of our community, and as an active transport route, it ticks a lot of the boxes. We were talking about the sort of stuff with the Active Travel England yesterday, and you know, we are very keen to do it, but I don't have any news on where we're going to get the funding as yet, except for we've got a lot of people trying to get it, and you know, and that's the pain. We really hope it doesn't take the sort of time that a lot of these projects that even have the money take, but you know, I think with the help of Mill Road people giving us lots of ideas and all of our officers, but yeah, I'm as keen as you are, Andy, to get this next stage done, and but it's a real problem. Have you got anything else you can add to that, Alex?
Yeah, no, obviously it's very much a priority for us, but obviously we're living in a very constrained funding environment right now, and as you all know, it comes through central government and the CPCA, all of these things. So trying to push all of those levers and try and make that is where it's challenging. I'm sure you're aware that there's so many other places that are also competing for this for brilliant projects, but Mill Road is obviously also a very brilliant project, and it is something that we put forwards for quite a few things previously, but unfortunately so far it hasn't been successful in securing funding, but it will continue to be put forwards as it is a priority for us.
Yeah, just to say that Active Travel England mentioned it yesterday, as Sustrans did as well. So it's on quite a few radars as well. It's all good indications. And you have another question as well, don't you? Which I almost got to accidentally answer before, didn't I, Chair? Sorry.
Should we I'll just take a couple of other hands and then we'll go back to the other question, if that's okay. Councillor Howett.
I believe that my colleagues are working their utmost on this, so I don't want my comments to be interpreted as criticism of them. They're my close colleagues and I respect them greatly. But I do think as an East Area Committee, you know, we should actually express our solidarity and frustration as well, that this hasn't moved quicker. And by this, I mean the investment in the public realm alongside the plan changes to Mill Road. You know, both Councillor Shayler and myself have met with Mill Road people and had this discussion in private. You know, I think the intention should have been to bring in the investment in the realm at the same time as the changes to the road, and it's extremely disappointing if that doesn't happen. That, as I say, I don't want that to be interpreted as criticism of my colleagues, but I do think that we have to, all of us, give the greatest priority possible to making sure the promises that we did make and were made in good faith earlier in the process are actually honoured. And so I do feel that I should say that in response to this question.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
do you want me to come back in there and
Yes,
say
please do. Yeah.
totally understand, Councillor Howard. I'm sure you are aware of just how little of the budget from our county council goes on highways compared to other things, unfortunately, which means that we are unfortunately always, for highways capital projects like this, going cap in hand to other bodies, be that the CPCA, Active Travel England, the Highways Agency. We're unfortunately we don't have budget within highways. We're always cap in hand. So while we are putting this forward for as many as possible, unfortunately, while we would have scored this very highly, we are at the mercy of how others score things as well, unfortunately. So we will continue to push it and put it forwards. But unfortunately, as I'm sure you're aware, adults and health, children and young people, that's unfortunately where the majority of the council's budget goes. But we will continue to push every avenue that we can on this one.
Thank you. So it's Councillor Page and Councillor Bennett, and then I'll come back to you, Andy.
I understand there was £200,000 allocated by the combined authority for planning the infrastructure on Mill Road. And
Can I answer that, Chair?
If Neil's shaking his head, I understood that he said it was. But the point is that if we're going to be doing something and asking for money, we need a plan. Can we set up a working party from this committee to actually look at what we want as an infrastructure and an enhancement of Mill Road?
Would you like to answer that, Councillor Beckett?
I thought Neil was going to answer it with the other part.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah,
that's fine.
Councillor Shayler,
Neil, do you want to go? Or shall I? Happy.
Yeah, I could answer the bit about the fund. That was on the list of possible schemes from the Transforming Cities Fund, which was the over, and it didn't make it. There was a question about if that was in the original remit of that fund, and it fell short according to the CPCA officers. So yeah, that was close, but not quite.
In terms of working party, are you thinking along the lines of councillors meeting with Mill Road for People to draw up? I know that Mill Road for People already have extensive ideas and suggestions. It's something possibly, Councillor Davey, you can help with. Is this the sort of thing that we can do, city councillors, in conjunction with the county councillors? Could it come under CJAC? I don't know. You're muted, Councillor.
That invitation, Dinah, it's certainly the sort of thing we could do, but I'd want to obviously talk to my colleagues at the county council, bearing in mind their responsibility for the highways. So I think it's an idea that maybe I could pick up with Dave outside the meeting and see how we can progress it.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just to say on that one, that there will obviously be a lot of engagement that goes on with this. The highways officers have met a lot with Mill Road for People. We know all the good work they have been doing. So there are connections open here, and I know Dave has met up with county highways officers before to discuss this. There's a lot of work being gone on here, even if it isn't via a formal process. And obviously anything that does happen here will end up almost certainly at a formal consultation before anything happens as well.
Yeah, my point being is if we want to go and ask for money, it would be great to have a scheme in our pocket to tell them what we wanted the money for.
So if you'd like to take that up with Councillor Davey, I think, and see if we can move that forward as an idea, That would be great. Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Hi. This is just really to Andy, and it's a suggestion about parallel funding, which is councils access government grants. However, community groups can access different sorts of grants. And I know you're quite a big group, and that you've got, I think there's at least 2 accountants in your group. While I don't want to volunteer somebody who isn't here to protect themselves, I was going to suggest that maybe your group consider approaching CCVS and signing up for their grant training, which is excellent and is free to members, and perhaps look for a project between £5,000 and £20,000 that you could do just to show proof of concept, and also possibly encourage public sectors to see, hey, this is a really good thing, and maybe go looking for some grants. And I don't want to talk about money for a long period because I know people really hate that, but I'd be very happy to make a few suggestions about low-hanging fruit in terms of funders, and CCVS would be able to make lots more suggestions. So if your members are getting frustrated, maybe that would be something that you could work on while you're waiting for the big government money to get in.
Thank you for that suggestion. Shall I go back to Andy, please?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Pounds. Yes, thanks, Councillor Bennett. Yeah, I mean, we are thinking in parallel with, you know, our efforts to get something on the table from county with government funds, that we, you know, we want to be doing other things, both with support from the council, and we've sent a list of quick wins today to Councillor Shayler, Councillor Howitt, for them to have a look at, smaller scale things that maybe might be slightly easier to fund, but also things that the community can do, and indeed fundraise for. So yes, thank you for the suggestion, and I will take it up and contact CCVS. Yeah.
Right, thank you for that. Yeah. So Councillor Shayler, our last point now, I think, if that's okay.
Yeah, just very quickly, I want to really thank Mill Road for People is a fantastic example of a grassroots movement. It's just absolutely fantastic. So we want to do everything we can to support you guys. It costs money, of course, to do any kind of design work as well, because you know but we want the wish list. We want all of those bits and pieces, and you know, if we can do anything even slightly more detailed, that's brilliant. But as you know, waiting for having something already planned before we go for the money is not really possible, given that it costs a lot of money just to do the design work, actually. But I appreciate all of the lists that you sent today as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I think, yeah, I think we all agree that it's really important that we maintain a really close dialogue now as a way of pushing forward, moving forward on this. And I hope that we can do that. Andy, did you want to come back with the last point? Yep, sure.
Yeah, thanks. But just before we get off the public realm funding question, I'd remind, if you need reminding, perhaps you don't, councillors Beckett, Shayler, Howard and others, that you know, the catchment area around Mill Road, we know there have been schemes going in towns like St Neots, and there's a scheme going in at the moment, I believe, in March. And the catchment area, in terms of number of residents that are within walking or cycling distance of Mill Road, is at least as, if not bigger than those places. So there is precedent for, you know, when you're selling this or trying to sell it as a scheme, I would encourage you not to think about it as this narrow ribbon of shops, but as a small town in the east of Cambridge, which you know, warrants you know, investment. Yeah, and it hasn't had any for, as you will, anybody who walks down it regularly will know. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, the last question about rat running. I heard Councillor Shayler's response to that previously. And which was, as I understood it broadly, that we will monitor it and see if it's a problem. I would suggest, with the greatest respect, that we know it's going to be a problem. And the reason we know it's going to be a problem is that it's a problem today with the bridge unrestricted. Taxis will continue to be allowed to go over the bridge. So taxis make up a significant proportion of the traffic that runs through South Petersfield. So I don't think there's any doubt. So I think we need to bite the bullet. I understand there's some political sensitivities here, but that needs to be worked through and conversations need to be had, because, you know, in terms of our residents of those streets in South Petersfield, there's a huge amount of pollution, noise, and it really degrades the low traffic experience in Petersfield, in the Mill Road stretch of Petersfield, if you don't do something about it, because the traffic levels, whilst they don't reduce to anything like the extent you really would like to see because of what I've just talked about. So I think to say we're going to wait and monitor it is just a bit sort of, I don't know what the expression is, pushing the thing down the what's it, you know, and yeah, we need to get a grip really and bite the bullet, grasp the nettle, and deal with these political challenges in as good a way as we can, and have a plan for dealing with it, because it's, you know, it's gonna mean, we're saying no streetscape improvements. We're saying for the foreseeable, apart from what the community can organise, we're saying that the traffic in Petersfield is going to be a little bit reduced. I don't know, just begins to feel like a missed opportunity if we're not very careful.
Thanks. Can I go to Councillor Thornborough and then Councillor Beckett, Councillor Shaler?
Yeah. I was on the Transport and Infrastructure Committee and back in March last year, and there was £100,000 committed by the Combined Authority under the Active Travel Fund. Not that there may be something under the Transforming Cities, but there's £100,000 under the Active Travel Fund, and it was listed as the 12th priority project. And my understanding is that that was to be it was within this year's financial budget. So I wonder if you, Councillor Shaler or Councillor Smith, could look into that and make sure we've got that funding coming through. Thanks.
Thank you for that point. I think that's something we could raise with Councillor Smith. I don't think she's made it tonight. She had another meeting, but we will make sure that gets raised with her, because she's obviously got that role in the Combined Authority. Can I go to Councillor Beckett?
Sure, I think Councillor Shaler was actually before me, but
Oh,
if he's happy with me going first, happy to do that. So Councillor Thornborough, I think that was the money dedicated to actually implementing the closure. So the cameras and all of those other changes associated with actually getting the closure back in. So that's where that money is going. Unfortunately, it's not for realm changes, but to actually implement it. Just to pick up on some of the other bits, in terms of funding as well, it might be worth Councillor Davey and I getting together. I know Councillor Davey is now obviously on the GCP executive board, that there might be some possibility of seeing if we can go slightly cap in hand to our friends at the GCP for some of this as well. There's obviously, when you talk about rat running, there is a lot of issues around that, very aware of that. The GCP does have much bigger plans for that, though, with a lot of their network hierarchy review and the work going on around that. So do be aware this isn't a static area. This is an area where there is an awful lot of different parties working on a lot of different pieces of this jigsaw puzzle to make it put together. So monitoring, I think, is very useful for us to understand what the problem is, and particularly understand what the problem is post closure. But then there's many different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle coming together to try and tackle all of this.
Thank you. And Councillor Shaler?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, about I'm under no doubt that you're right, Andy. However, when it comes to funding, we have to evidence. We have to put the data there. Otherwise, we'll miss out on the next piece of funding as well. So we're thinking, it has to be done by the book, and so we have to follow the data, have to evidence everything we do. Unfortunately.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's quite clear that everybody is pushing to make this happen, and where there's a will, there's a way, and we will get there. And these are difficult times in terms of funding. So I made a few notes on people who are going to take actions forward, and I think I'll drop that. And as I said before, I think it's really important that we keep talking with you and your group, Andy, to keep the thing absolutely on the boil. If everybody's happy now, I'd like to move on to the next question. Thank you for coming along, Andy, and for that discussion. So the next question has come from Shapur Mefta, and it's to do with the Mill Road, the closure of the Mill Road toilets. And it's he just writes, so we have noticed that Mill Road toilets are permanently closed. Why you, as local authorities, promoting active travelling and from the other hand, closing public facilities, which are very important for public to use? Closure of Mill Road Bridge and lack of public communities will have a big impact on any activities such as Mill Road Winter Fair and other small gatherings. So he would like to know the reason for the decision and why the traders were not informed. Can I ask Councillor Moore if you would respond to this one? Thank you.
Thank you. So we had to make savings as a council, and we considered all of our public toilets, and these were unfortunately some of the lowest use ones. We suffer from a lot of a high amount of vandalism of our toilets. So obviously it's not just about having toilets open, but they need to be clean and kept in good repair, because otherwise people don't want to use them. And so we have to make some very difficult decisions. And what we're doing is spending the money rather than just managing all of our toilets at the bare minimum, is investing in the high use toilets. We did consult on all of our, or not the whole budget, but we did consult on our budget in December and January. So we did get public feedback on this. And as I say, these ones were some of the lowest use ones, which also means a much higher cost per use. Some of our others had over 10 times the use of these ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's also worth pointing out that there is the community centre very close by, isn't it, for people to use instead. And it was discussed, and it has been on the committee agendas quite a lot, the closure of the toilets, and so I think it was quite well publicised. Councillor Robertson, did you want to come in?
Yes, I'm sorry you raised the community centre. It's a community centre is not there for, it's there for being hired by people. You can't have people from the public just wandering in. It's a locked door. It's not like a pub or a restaurant where you can go in and use facilities quite often. So I think that would be misleading to guide people to go to the new community centre when it is not available for that
Right,
purpose.
thank you. Yeah. Anybody else want to come in on this one? Well, thank you, Councillor Moore. I think that's answered the question clearly, and we'll send a written reply to Shapur. Actually, the next question from Sue Calverley, which is really the same as Shapur's question, I think. So just expressing concern that it's a long way to any other toilets, public toilets, which, and as you've said, Richard, actually the community centre can't be used for this. But I think we have addressed that by saying that the use is actually very, very low, isn't it? You did pick on those really because they are not used very much. And I think it was a difficult decision all round, but we do have financial constraints. We know that. Did you want to come back at all, Councillor Moore?
Yes, of course. Nobody wants to use closed public toilets. It would be nice to be able to invest in all of them. But we did have to make some difficult decisions. I would say the fact that these ones were, along with the other ones that we closed, were the low use ones. I don't think that will have an impact on the businesses on Mill Road because they are low use. and we hope to be able to use that building for something else. We're still looking into that, but that will add to the Petersfield side of Mill Road. So that could be a real positive for the local businesses and the local area. So if people have any recommendations or requests, then we'd be happy to hear them. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Robertson.
You're on mute.
Legacy,
Oh.
legacy.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Beckett.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's sad to see those toilets close. I was just wondering when we talk about low use, whether what that quantifies as, and also given that we're obviously now talking about public realm improvements to Mill Road and making it a far more popular place for people, whether any thought went into potential future use of those toilets, or whether it was modelled on current use rather than use that might come given all the work that we're trying to achieve on Mill Road.
Councillor Moore, are you able to answer that?
Thank you. Yes, so there's quite drastic differences between the use of some of our different toilets. And so that, but some of the costs are still the same. So that we looked at the cost per use and chose the ones where it was particularly high. We did look at the original. We haven't looked to what changes might be made in Mill Road, but I would highlight that Mill Road is, we've got the swimming pool at one end. We're relatively close to the Grafton Centre and also the toilets on Parker's Piece, but also it is full of things like pubs and cafes, restaurants, where people can ask to use those. We did look into having a proper scheme for community toilets, but where they've tried that it involved a lot of effort in setting it up, and then it didn't really add to it, because generally if people go and ask to use the toilets in, for example, a pub, then in experience they are let in to use it. Thank you. And as I say, we have to make difficult decisions, and we need to ensure before I was a councillor, before actually Labour were in power, when I had small children, whenever you needed those toilets, they were in a horrible state and you wouldn't go in there and use them. And that's what we need to make sure, that all of our toilets, when people go in to use them, A, they're clean and that people feel able to use them, but B, they're in good working order, because as I say, we have high levels of vandalism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a last point, please, Councillor Robertson.
Yes, I think it would be useful if we actually were given, made available the actual figures for the use of the toilets on Mill Road, because they are very low, and I think we should be able to demonstrate that by making those figures available. I just noticed that Shapur mentions the Mill Road Winter Fair. If Mill Road Winter Fair was dependent on those toilets, they would be in a bit of a state. The whole of the tens of thousands of people who come to the Winter Fair, they make use of facilities all over up and down the street, in the pubs, restaurants, community halls, everything is open. It's totally unnecessary to think about the few toilets that we were providing as being contributing to the success of Winter Fair. They're totally irrelevant.
Oh, thank you very much for that point. Good. Thank you for those contributions. Now, our last public question then refers to the developers of the land south of Coldham's Lane, known as the Romsey Lakes, behind their parcel A, I think it was. If you're all aware, there was a proposal to have a lorry park or logistic park there, which was rejected. There's a new proposal now for a kind of tech park, which is coming forward now. Councillor Bajan and I attended a preview of this, so we have it was a reasonable idea of what's being proposed. I would just like to say that I contacted the Coldhams Lane Residents Association and put them in touch with the developer. So they, who are probably the most interested local residents association, have been consulted, are involved, and they will be going to the exhibition, the public event, which is on. He's not given the date, and I don't have it at the top of my at the tip of my fingers. He's not written the date, but it's coming up, I think, the end of June. It will be advertised, and certainly I'll pass that message on to all local councillors, all of you, so that you're aware of that date, if in case he doesn't email all of us. He's also asking that we get in touch with Rail Future East Anglia and the Combined Authority to discuss possibilities of upgrading the railway line, which runs along the southern side of the development site. Now, I'll check with Councillor Bajan, but I've got a feeling that they talked about that already and have done it, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. And also, the traffic generated by cars and proposed shuttle buses, public transport on a road that has just historically has had traffic congestion problems for years, needs to be considered. I know that at their presentation they emphasised very strongly that they expected most of the people to work there to live on the new Marshalls development, but you know, that's a promise, that's not a fact. And we did raise the issue of cars, but also that they were looking at the various at it being a green site, and active travel being the main use. They've also contacted the railway, and the issue is that bridge on the Tins, and I know that getting that changed is not something the railway are prepared to do at the moment. Can I go to Councillor Thornborough?
Yes, I do meet quite regularly with Rail Futures, and I know that the Combined Authority have been engaged with Rail Futures and with the lobby decision makers regarding rail improvements, and the Combined Authority are engaging with Network Rail on doubling the track to improve the capacity on that line, to, you know, double the number of people travelling along that line, and will be pushing hard for other Network Rail improvements, and we will as well. We'll continue to work with Network Rail and Rail Futures and try and make some quick wins if possible, and some make sure longer term investment comes as quickly as possible.
That's really good news, because it is quite, when you look at that line, it's wide enough, isn't it? It's already sort of laid out to be wide enough for it to be a double track. But the railway bridge,
it used to be double tracked till not that long ago, actually. So all the land is there to go back to double track. And conversations are active. Some prominent people in Newmarket are lobbying for this as well. So.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Thornborough. That's really good news. The other thing with the route through the Tins, it does need upgrading, but that bridge over the railway is very steep for cyclists, and also quite dangerous because it has a sharp bend as well. So it would be good, you know, if they would also improve that, because that will be active travel from the site. Just from my personal point of view, I have serious concerns about developing this site because of the fact that it's on an old landfill site, unmonitored landfill site from the 80s. Goodness only knows what is down there. And so I think I would say that if you can go to the exhibition, I would really welcome that. There's the date, Andrew has put the date in the chat. So it's the 24th of June, 11 till 3 in St Andrew's Church, Coldhams Lane, Cherry Hinton. Because there are real environmental concerns about disturbing a waste tip like that. And anything that they propose that has height will have to have deeper foundations, and that means more disruption of this, you know, of goodness only knows what's in that landfill site. Councillor Goodliffe, can I come to you, please?
thank you. I think someone else has got a hand up, but I'm quite happy to jump in. I know that a lot of the Cherry Hinton residents, particularly around Wolsey Way and Ivor Close and that kind of area, who are obviously very close to where this proposed development are very active and in looking at it. I was going to say it's Saturday, the meeting. It's a change from the previous proposal, but I'm not convinced that traffic wise, at least, it makes that sense. And as you say, the land itself has had a bit of a history with what's been left in it. So it'll be an interesting one to see environmentally what can be done. I know historically there's restrictions on what people can even put in their gardens along Kathleen Elliott Way because of what's underneath the soil and things. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Bagent.
If I can add, I think that the Cherry Hinton would benefit from that track being doubled and a railway station being put in there, because that would then certainly stop all those people that say they can't get out to Newmarket and places like that and can't get into the city. That would be very beneficial. I agree with everything you said about the meeting that we had with them. We did emphasise as much as possible to make the point very clear that we were concerned about traffic on Coldham's Lane. We really hammered home that point. I did explain to them that the last development on Coldham's Lane only got through by one vote on the basis that we objected or some people objected and thought it was a bad idea because of the traffic. That bridge at the bottom by Sainsbury's is a particularly dangerous area because you can't get two HGs passing each other, and there's certainly not room for bikes and HGVs. So I think as they will probably become the people that will have to be looking at that very seriously. And in regards to them we actually talked to them about buying some houses on the new site to house their staff in, which seemed a great idea. So they could actually offer a job and housing, and then people could walk to work. They gave us the impression they were really interested, but I've never met actually a developer that isn't really interested in the community. So
Yes.
and the Tins Bridge, somebody at some point is going to have to fix the Tins Bridge. It won't be Network Rail. Because there's no interest from them in doing that. So somewhere a developer will have to put that money up and get it done.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Bagent. Councillor Beckett, and then I think I'm going to wrap up because we are actually
I just wanted to echo
Yes.
some of what Councillor Bagent said there, the deep concern with traffic that's going to be caused by this. I believe it's something like 800 parking spaces in the current designs, which is obviously really quite worrying. While it is a step up from a logistics hub, which would have been totally inappropriate, it still doesn't feel right, should we say, to have that much parking that close and going down Coldham's Lane and indeed the rest of the ring road. So I'm very happy to take this away as well and talk to our highways planning engineers to make sure that that is raised with them.
That's right.
And the impact of that. One thing I know that we have been doing is that our traffic modelling for planning applications has previously looked at the kind of the small scale impact or the local impact of it. And one thing that we're trying to do is actually make sure that that looks at the wider impact of this and the effect that it has on the roads. So I'm very happy to take that away as well and make sure that that's communicated to some of our traffic planning officers.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Beckett. I'm going to wrap up our meeting now, if that's okay, because we are a bit over time now. And thank you ever so much for your contributions. I think, I hope that our residents are pleased and with the responses and the amount of consideration and what's going on in their area. I just wanted to very briefly then say about meeting in person, and I think we won't make a decision, can't make a decision tonight, but I will raise it with our officers to see if it's possible. If you want to email me your thoughts about whether you would like that and whether you think what the benefits are, and whether we think our residents would prefer that, I think that's probably a great way to go, and we'll discuss it further. Okay, so if I can ask the committee chair now to close our live stream.
Thank you.
Committee chair, the committee manager.
We are off the air.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. very much, everybody. Good night. Good evening. Thanks.
Councillor Pounds, just for a moment, just to let you know, the stream stopped about 10 times this evening due to losing internet connection, but I have the entire meeting recorded